ADHD. That's what it is. That's why. That's why everything's titled so ridiculous. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Advanced Refrigeration Podcast. You're the host, Brett Wetzel and Kevin Compass. It's raining here today. I'm in sunny, humid Houston. It's just hot.
So gross.
Oh my God. It's usually like 70% humidity. Today it's 110. So it's awesome.
Probably one of the most disgusting places I've ever worked. Just 6 a.m. It's just miserably humid.
It's not. Yeah, no, it is. It's not. No, it's really humid. Never mind. It is humid.
It's like walking outside and you're just like instantly wet.
Or if you're walking in a sauna, this was like, it's like a hot sauna with wet socks. Yes, 100%. And then because it just, I don't know, Houston also floods. So someone asked me the first time they came out here with me, and they were like, "Hey, why is there level feet meters, like underneath some of the bridges?" I'm like, "So you don't drive in if you see feet of water?" They're like, "No." I was like, yeah, that's what they're for. So that's wonderful. And I'm still not done. I still, like, this week I was just covering a little bit of teaching, because one of the cats that I have teaching had vacation. He went out of town, and so he came in today. He said he was going to be here around noon. He showed up right before class ended. So I decided to just leave tomorrow because right now I don't know. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculously busy. I don't know which it ends up. I actually have to come back down here in 2 weeks on the 18th for another job fair. What are you doing?
Oh, I finally finished one of my EMS jobs after waiting two and a half months for door alarms. So I got one done, and hopefully I'm done driving 6 hours to work and back every day.
Yeah.
Because that was pretty brutal. Like, just absolutely terrible drive in the middle of nowhere.
So can you talk about the mystery DIs? Did you get that all figured out?
No. Some of them started working, and then other things broke when we updated the firmware. So I'm at this point, like, I just gave up. Like, we couldn't get random compressors to proof out. So at this point, I just gave up.
Let me ask you a question. Has anyone tried to start, like, just write the program from scratch?
Oh, dude, like, I deleted the entire suction group the one day.
No, I'm not talking. I'm talking starting straight from scratch. Nothing on the freaking controller. You load everything.
As far as I'm concerned, that's a manufacturer's problem. You shouldn't have to do that. If you have to do that, there's a problem with the controller. There's a problem with the software. That is not a me problem. That is a them problem.
It's actually a you problem because you're dealing with it.
Yeah, I'm not after putting 12 hours into compressor proofs, trying to figure out why they weren't working. Like, my brain is fried, and it just is what it is. And then randomly, some of the proofs on the HVAC did it after I did the update. Some of those stopped working. So at that point, I just wanted to slam my head into the rack panel and just knock myself out.
That'd be awesome. How about, did anyone ever think about, like, downgrading the firmware?
I don't know.
No?
We just upgraded it. You don't want to go down.
No, I know, but I mean, maybe there's an issue with the firmware that you have, and
so if it explodes, I don't know. At this point, like, I gave up about it. Technically, it's not even supposed to be my responsibility.
But unfortunately, you care and you want to know what the hell's wrong, right?
Yeah, but then I stopped caring about 3/4 of the way through that, because once I realized it was nothing that I did, it was like, some things aren't fixable.
I'm sure the store manager would like to hear that. Yeah, some things are just not fixable.
Are you kidding me? This store they had like 4 temp sensors before, so they don't want alarms.
They don't want to know what's going on.
No, they did a pretty good job watching their cases, but, like, that light is not going to last long. That thing is going to be annihilated. So they already shoved paper towels in the horn. So come back, there's paper towels shoved in the horn, and it's nicely duct taped. You can still see the light, just no horn.
Nice.
So I don't know. I got one done. I was supposed to get another one done, but that ain't gonna happen because all hell and chaos broke loose for us. So, oh, between what we're gonna talk about tonight and everything else, everything just fell apart. Like this week just went to shit real quick. Just like case change outs went bad, stuff didn't show up, cases showed up damaged, stuff missing, uh, prints wrong, engineering wrong, stuff like that. Ended up having to like stop doing what I'm doing and then try to get all this other stuff done. Then in the midst of that, had to go change out two E2s so we could change another condenser and waited around to get licenses. So that was the end of my day. Basically, is trying to get Comtrol licenses and make sure all the stuff works.
Wait, you said control licenses
Yeah,
for
for
Emerson?
yeah.
Wow, I haven't heard of anyone doing one of those in quite a while.
I've had to do 4 in the last 6 weeks.
And you haven't spoke a word about it?
They're like honestly simple cake.
Yeah, the only bitch is like having to do all the pointers, right?
Yeah, but like I do a lot of flexible combiners and stuff, so I'm so used to doing pointers, like it doesn't bother me. It's just I think it's just as quick as putting board points in, especially if you do your like homework in the beginning and label the boards. It goes pretty quick.
Were you assuming you still have the old control shit where you're able to pull back with easy set and stuff and scope
No,
out all the software?
I just program it all by hand.
Oh, okay.
Like I just had the board point list and I just programmed it by
Well,
hand.
that's all I meant. Like, use the program, pull the program back, so you actually just have the points list. That's all I meant.
No, actually, these racks actually had a pretty good that, and the IL Legend wasn't bad, so
Really?
it was pretty close. Well, when there's 4 temp sensors in an entire store, it's pretty easy.
All right, I wasn't really thinking of that. Do they have the high voltage DI boards that you love so much?
Those things, oh my god, I despise those things. Let me tell you,
No, I know.
the first time I learned about those, I set a whole train of Danfoss boards on fire.
I know.
Whole train. I smoked an entire board train of, and it was a long one too. It was like 7 boards. And it was right in the middle. And this is like one of the first rack changeovers I did. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I had no help. And we tried to do 2 racks at the same time, me and this other kid.
Yeah.
And I had to quit helping. I had to quit what I was doing the entire time, keep going to help him. Well, I tried to do the entire rack at the same time, shut the thing off for 2 hours.
Yeah.
I turned it all back on. It turned on for a second. The first compressor kicked, and here came the smoke and fireworks.
Yeah, I remember because you called me. It was like, hey, did you know that, the control input boards have a high voltage version? I'm like, yes. And you're like, I found that shit out today.
You know how many people that it's gotten? It got one of my guys the other day too. He went to go move a point to a CPC board.
Mm-hmm.
It was on one of those high voltage, and
Oh,
boom.
shit.
But Danfoss makes a high voltage board.
Yes, there. Besides Comtrol, Danfoss is the only one. So I forget what the number was. I used to know it, but yeah, it's a version of input board that can take up to 240
I
volts.
refuse to use them. I put in relays because I'm not a jerk. I put in relays and make them dry contacts.
And that because you don't want someone to get injured, right? Because they're not very well, like they're not used very frequently. I'm sure they're super convenient when you're trying to do like, a gang clock changeover where you have to have the termination solenoid, for, the high voltage coming back for the termination solenoid. And I get that, but I also understand like most cats don't know about, the input board having 240. So you're like, oh, dry set of contacts, 14 gauge wire. Why is that?
Yeah, that. And then I'm just worried about what happens if one of those shorts. What happens if somebody drops something there? Then it's going to smoke an entire board train, and it's not worth it. For the cost of 8 DIN rail mounted 24 volt or 120 or 240 volt relays, this is cheap. You can buy it on Amazon for $20.
Oh, gotcha.
That's where I buy all that.
Oh, dude, the relays are expensive, man. I just bought a shit ton of them. They're expensive.
You're buying them in the wrong places. I literally just bought, what was it, like 12 240 volt, like double pull, double throw, ice cube relays that are DIN mount for $60.
Yeah, I guess I'm not using a certain place anymore then.
I just use Amazon.
Well, I mean,
Same with DIN rail. Dude, DIN rail is so much cheaper on Amazon than it is if you're going to like electrical supply house.
yeah, I know.
It's like a quarter of the price. Same with cable tray.
That was the other thing too. I bought a shit ton of Panduit for all those, those panels that I built for the trainers. Oh my god, it's just plastic, man.
Dude, Panduit literally is, they just rip you off. Like
No,
you
they don't rip you off. Why do you guys say shit like that?
because it is a rip off. Like you could buy 3M, or you could buy the Chinese brand for a quarter of the price. It literally is molded plastic.
We're in America.
For what they charge for it, it is ridiculous.
We're in America.
Yeah, that's why I could say that it's ridiculously overpriced. And you can go buy some 3M stuff for the same price, for a quarter of the price, same product.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway,
I just got panels and save it anyway.
you suck. Anyway, what are we talking about today? Oh, if you get the wrong case, right? If you get the wrong case, and let's just say you have a electric defrost case and you need to convert that shit over to hot gas, right?
So
And vice versa.
This just happened this week.
Oh, that's gay.
Not one case, not two cases, 36 cases.
Oh no! Someone didn't look at the submittal.
No, they did, and all the cases are tagged hot gas. And yeah, surprise.
All right, that sucks. Anyway, I don't know. Do you want to go electric to hot gas first?
Yeah, so we'll go electric to hot gas, guys. So like when you're doing this, obviously you're getting these cases in here, and most of the time, like you've already got the old cases broken apart and out. And I don't know about you, but 26-year-old cases don't usually go back together very well. And most of the time they're getting the Sawzall. You're committed at this point. And I don't know about you, about everybody else, but like most of the deliveries are never on time.
Mhm.
So we're getting cases out. We're waiting for cases to come in, and lo and behold, the cases come, and they are all piped for electric defrost, meaning you have no auxiliary side connector, no return check valve, no electrical components for this. You have just electric heaters. Unless you have electric heater power ran out there, you're up the creek.
So I have a question about that, because those auxiliary side connectors usually aren't a thing that exists readily available.
So surprisingly, there's a supply house out here called Ilco, like massive refrigeration supply house. They probably have one of the best sales guys I've dealt with around here. This guy he deals with all the supermarket shops, so he keeps stuff like this on hand.
Shout out to Ilco.
Yeah. So like they generally have auxiliary side connectors on hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have some at the shop because this happens quite a bit.
Okay.
And then we were able to get some from United to keep us, whatever we needed to keep us going. So basically, you got to source these auxiliary side connectors.
One more question. How about the nozzles? Because obviously, the auxiliary side connectors, need to have the nozzles installed in them. Are they the same nozzles that are currently in the old distributors?
With these ones, some of them are Sporlan distributors, so we're going to get lucky on that.
Mm-hmm.
The lineup that we had to make work that we took out is going to take some work. So we got to get the distributor orifices out, and we had to remove them and change them around. Now, the real bitch of this is getting the orifice out.
So that's what I was going to say. Wouldn't it have been a little bit easier, because I mean, it was obviously the old cases were hot gas defrost, right? I'm assuming they also were with the same gas, but I mean, I'd assume they would have, if it has 4 distributors on one, you probably have 4 on the other. Is that not the case? Because theoretically, you could have unsweated everything. And
some of them were 5 feeds, some of them were 4 feeds. So what we ended up doing is they're going to move those ones around tomorrow and repipe them, and then we got to get the orifices out. So easiest way to get the orifices out that I have found, because what happens is they get stuck because of silver solder. So you got to end up heating up the distributor like, nice and warm, and shove a drywall screw into the orifice. So you shove a drywall screw or an easy out into the
Mhm.
orifice, get it in there. That way you have something to pull against, because you're going to have to pull it out as you heat up the silver solder. And then what you have to do is you have to put this auxiliary side connector in, and you have to put it in between the TXV and the or you have to put the distributor orifice in between the TXV and the auxiliary side connector. So basically, what you have to do is open up flow from the distributor around the auxiliary side connector. So that way you have full flow. Because if you just put a T there, you're not going to get the flow you need. Like a
Mhm. Mhm.
lot of old guys used to do it, in cases that they continuously ice up, it's because of that. Now, the rest of these cases, the manufacturer is sending us out kits
Mhm.
because we have to convert all of them.
So you're gonna need, like you said, you need the auxiliary side port connector. You're gonna need the right port because the nozzle is not supposed to be in where the distributor is, especially if you're putting the auxiliary side port, because, like you said, it'll cause a lack in defrost. And then you would also need, obviously, the check valve. Are they supplying the T then to connect the check valve to the liquid line then?
So we have to do all that. So another thing with that, like if you guys are doing this, you need to make sure you tee it in after the hand valve. So that way, if this thing is iced up and you shut the hand valve off, it still has flow and defrost. So you want to have it on the rack side of the hand valve, not on the case side of the hand valve. You want the T on the case side or the rack side of the hand valve. So that way, if it goes into defrost and it's iced up and you have the hand valve off, you still have reverse flow backwards.
It also helps you out with diagnosing too. So, like, sometimes, you can, as far as when you have the, let's just say you have some weird liquid flow issue, you got some craziness going on with the pressures and stuff. If you shut off the hand valve and your superheat still continues to either stay the same or drop, then you know that your liquid check valve is bleeding by the way it's not supposed to.
Or it is in backwards, which has been a huge issue here lately with new cases.
Really?
So probably about one in every 15 glass doors. It's to the point where all the fitters are checking it now before they finish their tie-ins, because it's been that much of a problem here lately.
So which style of check valve has tell everyone what the check valve style has to be.
What do you mean?
Does it have to be like a magnet check? Or does it have to be a spun one? Does it have to be one of those Danfoss ones? What, does it matter?
It doesn't matter. It could be whatever. A check valve is a check valve.
Okay.
Most of the time, we see maggot checks.
Okay.
I don't really see anything in cases besides maggot checks anymore, because they're cheaper. They're not putting in. There's no point in putting a rebuildable check valve in there. It's so small and cheap that you would just burn it in real quick, other than rebuilding it. And plus, everybody's worried about leak points. So what we're using is this copper spun check valve. So you want to make sure you're not flowing backwards through those hand valves, because a lot of hand valves are directional too. So there's an actual diaphragm in there. So you could flex the diaphragm up and block the pipe.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that's done that way. Now, that is the easy part. On the rest of these cases, we're getting distributor kits from the manufacturer. They're sending out distributor kits.
So that's not the extra piece. That's the actual distributor with the nozzle already in it, with the distributor tubes and the orifice already installed on,
Correct.
so basically the side port is already in the actual distributor. It's not an
Correct.
extra piece you have to install.
So it's 6 joints. It's, all the joints on there, and then the TXV joint. And then all we got to do is pipe in the liquid. Now, that's like the easy part. Now comes the real bitch, is you got to rewire the entire case.
Oh, I have another question. So with were these were they supposed to have a oh my god, termination solenoid in there?
So no, not with this customer.
Okay, I'm just asking because if people don't know, they typically they'll do a normally open solenoid on the dump line coming out of the side of either the auxiliary side port or the side port distributor. So when it's done, defrosting, if the other ones still haven't hit temperature, hot gas on the whole circuit can still roll, and then it just shuts down that one case at a time,
I
so it
can't.
doesn't overheat the coil.
They hide bad piping. They're piped correctly. You don't need those. I don't know. The guys mess with them, and then they're such a nightmare to troubleshoot. You're in there ripping apart all the cases to get to them and figure out what's going on because guys mess with the stats for them all the time.
But
And it's just one more thing to fail.
I disagree with you.
It's just one more
Disagree.
thing. If they're piped properly, you
Disagree.
never have an issue
Still disagree.
because most guys don't pipe them right.
Still disagree.
That's fine. Most guys don't pipe hot gas cases right. They don't blow the lines up properly, or have the expansion loops inside the case.
You're talking about the end where you're supposed to have, like, what is it, a 5 or an 8-inch stub at the end?
Usually it's 4, but it's whatever. It has to be equal on both sides. But not so much that like the expansion loops on the liquid. So you need it looks like a U almost. It looks like a trap. So you need that, and then it needs to come out of a header that's double the size. So if your liquid line feeding your case is 5/8, it needs to be 1 1/8 inside the case. The header inside the case needs to be 1 1/8. It needs to be double the size of what's in there.
Yeah, so hold on. So I thought if it's 3/8, so this was my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong. I thought if the liquid line going into the case is 3/8, then you have to go up 2/8, right? So essentially, 4/8 would be 1/2 inch, then 5/8, or you're what would you do? Go all the way up to 7/8?
So it depends what's feeding the entire circuit. So not just the case. So if you got a 5/8 line feeding that entire circuit, so you blow it up 2 pipe sizes. So you blow it up to 1 1/8. So the header inside the case or the header on top of the case is where they all tied into. That liquid header would be 1 1/8. So it would have a 5/8 line feeding into an 1 1/8 header. That is how you
5/8 hot gas line?
know, like liquid line.
Oh, so you're talking, I'm sorry. You're not just the liquid line on the actual case.
The
You're
entire
talking,
header feeding the cases. So you'd
you're
have your line coming in from the rack. Okay, it's going to get to the cases, whether they're top fed or bottom fed. If they're bottom fed, you're going to have that line come in. It's going to tee into a header. The header is going to run the entire length of the case both ways.
Mhm, mhm.
And that header is going to pick up all the other cases. And that header should be double the pipe size of whatever line is feeding it. That is how you properly pipe hot gas.
I just wanted to hear you say header a whole bunch.
You're such a dick.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I really wanted to hear you explain it. Sorry.
Don't make me start saying you start saying some Philly words.
Just wait. I gotta go there on the.
So that whole next week you're gonna just be talking like you're straight from.
Oh my, no. So that's not until I think I'm leaving for Philly on the, I don't know, the week of the 21st or something like that. So when I come back, I'm gonna get a Philly pretzel, get some water down by the river, and then I'm gonna go to Kensington Avenue.
The whole next week is just gonna
And,
be
and get you go to fucking Jersey.
the whole next week is just gonna be
amazing. It's gonna be amazing.
great, just Philadelphia accent.
So expect that shit.
But yeah, so like the pipe and the refrigeration side of it, that's not the big issue. The bigger issue becomes the electrical, because remember now you got these heaters in here. So you got 2 things. I'm not taking the heaters out. That's a ton of work. And me personally, I don't want to rip apart a bunch of brand new cases. So they're not getting taken out. The wires getting cut back and they're out of the way. And when they ice up, somebody can rip them out if they want to rip them out. They're not gonna cause anything. Now, usually your drain rod heaters, those are usually they're usually the same voltage most of the time. So you don't really have to worry about those. But what you do have to worry about is how they're shutting the fans off, because some case manufacturers use the defrost power to shut the fans off via relay.
Yeah, so Husband does that. They have that little relay in there. So when it gets the electric from the defrost heaters, it basically de-energizes the fan and starts up the pan. So I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, you could probably take a Clixon of sorts or like a Ranco controller and hook it directly up to the suction line. So it's, because if it's a suction feed, from, for the hot gas going into the suction, reverse flow or whatever, that's the first place to get hot and the last place to get cold. So technically that should, if you have it on the suction line, it should cut it out as soon as it even remotely starts to get warm.
Correct. So if you get it from the OEM, you need to have a Clixon there. Me personally, I would rather have Johnson Controls A419.
I like the Ranco was it 060100, the one that they usually put on the back of the bone evaporators for the fan heater for the walk-ins.
50/50 with those because they're bitch them out in a case raceway. Like
Oh,
those are nice for coils, but like, put it in a raceway of a case. It's so you got to remember you got to fit in the raceway. So
no, I get you, but I don't think I know the one that you're talking about. What did you say? It was Johnson Control what?
like a Johnson controlled pen stat, like a 419.
Like
You know,
A19 or whatever?
yeah, like a 419, or is it an A19? The 419 is the digital one, but like the A19, like the cheap like $30 stat that like is
The regular one with a 6-foot bulb. Yeah. No, I get it.
so
Okay.
I prefer those just for the fact that you could adjust them, and I like to cut my fans out really, like 10-15 degrees. I rather have the fans off as soon as I can get them off because I'd rather have that hot gas rolling through there so I have a faster defrost.
Now,
So
let me ask you a question on these cases that you're already dealing with. Do they already have a fan delay clicks on in there?
no.
They don't. So then you got to make sure that it gets cold enough before you kick it back on the suction line there before it kicks on.
Why
See, that's what's that?
Hussman doesn't do that.
Yeah, I know, but
In the electric cases, they just let her roll. You know what? Like I never understood that. Those cases never have a problem. They never have frost buildup anywhere in the case. They get moisture sometimes at the top, but they don't. If you look at everybody else's case, there's shit all over them.
See, my thing is if that's why I like I have been able to put like in the older toilet cases, I haven't ever tried it in the newer cases, but I was able to do one of the the Ranco controllers, and the only reason why I like those ones is because you could adjust the range fairly wide. So I'll cut it out as soon as it gets remotely warm. Like you said, 15, 20 degrees, and then you could bury that stat down to 0 degrees, or 5 degrees or whatever, and wait for that whole thing to get before you kick on the fans.
Yeah, it's nice. Those are like few and far between. Nobody really carries Ranco out here. It's actually like pretty rare to see Ranco stuff out here. But I don't know, like the Johnson controlled one, like it's common. You can keep like 10 of them on the truck and they cost $40.
No, I get it. I just like the adjustable range. I'm just being a pansy.
Oh yeah, those are adjustable to a point, but it's not a true fan delay like that Ranco. Like that is designed to be a fan delay. But so you need to make sure that your fans shut off somehow. If it's hot gas, obviously you got to make sure your fans shut off somehow. So you got to have a fan clicks on in there. And then you need to also make sure at the same time you're killing the fans and then energizing the heater for the drain. And then some of these cases you really need to watch because they shut the anti-sweats off when you're in defrost. So they do this so you don't overamp the circuit.
Not just that, but there's no need for it, right? If you're not blowing cold air out of the honeycombs, down towards the door frames, there's no reason to try to heat them up.
Well,
right?
no, I'm serious. And it's to protect the circuit because so frame heaters on a 5-door pull 4.5 amps. Okay. You got 3 5-doors in a row. You're almost to 15 amps.
Yeah, but it's resistive heat. There's no inrush. We were talking about that today in class because like how they on the contactors, and how basically there's a resistive load and then there's an inductive load. And the inductive load is usually lower because it compensates for the fact that when that inductive load starts up, whether it be a motor or whatever, it counts for that inrush so you don't overamp the contactor totally.
Yeah, but here's the thing. So say you're drawing 14, 15 amps and you're on a 20 amp circuit. Okay. Drain rod heaters are 2.5 amps a piece.
Maybe they should have upped the size of the engineering. Just a thought.
I'm just saying. So like that's so now you're on a 20. This is 20 amp minimum for the cases.
You're a 20 amp minimum.
So or 20 amp maximum, I think. So you have that 20 amp. You have that 20 amp that overcurrent on there for that you have to maintain. So you're right there. So that's why they kill the anti-sweat heaters in those cases. So that way you don't overamp your fan circuit. So that's just one thing you got to watch out for. You got to wire all in, and you got to have those relays working, properly. And you didn't actually, when you go through this, you need to test it all. You need to test it, throw it through defrost, make sure your fans drop out, make sure your drain rod heater energizes, make sure the heaters for the doors drop out if you are using that. But so you basically have to go find a wiring diagram for a hot gas
Yes.
and then wire it like that and try to make it look as neat as possible. Now, we've had to do the reverse too. We've had hot cases come out as electric.
That seems like it would be a hell of a lot easier because there's no piping. Like, I mean, what do? You pin what's that?
There's no piping, but it's a pain in the ass because who wants to put a bunch of back heaters in?
That's the only thing I was about to say because I was like, as far as the piping, I mean, it's easy. You could freaking pinch off the check valve, cut it, braze it shut, braze the other section so you don't have any bleed by ever, just by accident.
I leave because what if the store ends up going to hot gas? We've done it before.
Yeah. But yeah, getting those heaters in the back of those cases is not always fun. You got some manufacturers where you have to lift up multiple panels individually on the back wall in order to get the L bracket at the very end that basically connects the back wall to the coil. To get that out, you got to lift all these individual panels, and that's just playing with a guillotine. So that's really fun.
Nobody has ever designed a coil that is technician friendly to change a heater. Fuck the front heater. The front heater should never go bad. It's the rear heater 99% of the time.
Tyler,
ever changed a heater in a Tyler case?
I think I've changed like one or two. Like even the coffin cases are stupid easy. I love the cattle prod ones from the return air. Seriously.
What?
I hate you.
What? They're out of business. And it legitimately happened, by the way.
I don't care. Next subject. Jesus.
But no, like those heaters, I've never had a Tyler glass door heater go bad. Like they just don't fail.
Built in America.
Those things are built like tanks. Those cases like never die.
They're not wish.com heaters.
No, but I will say this though, Hill Phoenix, like for the most part, their glass doors come out with auxiliary side connectors already in them.
The what? Say it again.
The Hill doors and the Zero Zone doors of lately have come out. Even if you order them electric, they come out with an auxiliary side connector already in them.
Makes sense because then you don't have to buy. Rather buy one whole manufacturer of it. And what's nice about I like the fact that I don't know if Hill still does it because as you say, I don't do anything anymore. They used to paint. They used to paint the distributors to let you know what nozzle size is actually in there.
They stopped doing that a while ago.
No, that's dumb.
But like from a manufacturer standpoint, I see both sides of it because your margin for this up is way less. Because if you do, it's going to cost way less money. Because those auxiliary side connectors are hard to get. That's where it's going to come into. And if you already put them in there, say it costs you $15 to get them from a manufacturing standpoint, it's going to be $15. It's going to be, a couple $100 for me to put it in the field.
Yeah, true.
I would rather see it like that. Some of the Hill coffins already come pipe for both.
Really?
Yeah, check valves installed, everything. So it's ready to go no matter what.
I was looking at an IOM the other day because someone was having a problem with one of those cases, and they actually changed. Remember how like on the Hill case it used to say 3 to 5 degrees superheat no matter what.
Yeah,
they actually changed it now it's 3 to 5 for low temp and 6 to 8 for medium temp.
I just run everything 3 to 5.
Yeah, I know.
It just seems to just hum better.
Yeah, it just gives it more, good flow. Good flow.
Superheat.
It is.
But I've been converting that. We've had to do coils here lately too. We've had coils come out wrong, and we've had to repipe coils to electric defrost, from electric defrost to hot gas. No pans though. Like that is, I am totally against hot gas drain pans. They don't work for the shit. I will take an electric drain pan any day over a hot gas drain pan. Just way too many issues.
Really?
I see way more drain icing up, way more issues with that. Like I would any day, hands down, take electric heaters in the drain pan.
Hmm.
But again, like I'm totally against hot gas walk-in coils.
Why?
I absolutely despise it. I would
Why?
much have hot. I would much rather have electric for the simple reason: if that thing ices up, I could lock the heaters on for 2 or 3 hours, and the thing's de-iced.
And you can't do that with hot gas?
No,
Why?
because A, it's affecting everything else, and B, like most of the time when a coil's that thick, it doesn't defrost very well.
Yeah, usually because of the air that's created. You know, I've seen it. You know, when we did industrials, you know, you'd climb up on the lift, and you know, let's just say something happened where a solenoid wasn't feeding defrost, right? Or something happened where the drain backed up, and then all that water sat in there, and then it refroze. What was nice about industrial, you can keep that bitch running for 2 days. You know, it's a big ass central system, multiple thousands of horsepower compressor. You know, all we would do is, you know, find where the drain hole is, plug it up, physically plug it up. Because what would happen is if you wouldn't plug it up and then the water would melt, you know, from the ice, or the ice would melt in the water, but you know, then if it would go down the drain, then now you have heated pan, air, and then ice.
Ooh.
So we'd plug up the drain. Yeah. So it would take forever. So we'd plug up the drain, find where the drain is, plug it up. And then once you do that, you put a tarp around the back, around the front, and let it cook. Hey, I'll see you in 2 days. You got 60 more evaporators in that walk, and we'll be back.
So that's the thing. I'll do that with electric. Just make sure there's no sprinkler head behind it. One of my buddies forgot about that, and he went to break and came back, and the fire alarm was going off. And he's, "What idiot set the fire alarm off?" And then he saw the water flowing out of the walk-in and was like, "Oh,
I'm an idiot. I'm an
yeah."
idiot. No,
So
I had a similar situation. I was working. This is when I first started working for a company doing the industrial, and I was working with them. We were replacing the drain pan heaters for something because something happened with sizing. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what happened, but everything was iced up. And this guy pulls out of his truck a torch down torch that you use for like torching down tar roofs. Right? I used to torch down when I was a kid with my dad, and you know, basically light this thing with a big ass torch. You know, the head of it's 4 inches. So you're literally, he pulls this thing out. I'm like, what are we doing with that? He's like, we're gonna de-ice that coil real quick. So we get up in the walk-in, and he's doing this, and he's going back and forth in the coil, not really spending much time on it. And the door, in correlation with the walk-in, the door was probably 4 feet, you know, lower than, you know, the top of the walk-in. But the walk-in wasn't like super, super tall. And I remember looking up and laughing to myself. I'm like, it says it's 113 degrees in here. Not 2 seconds later, after I thought that, all of a sudden I heard, psh, and I was like, what did you hit? What did you hit? He's like, I wasn't even on the thing. I wasn't even on the thing. You know, the sprinkler heads bust at 130 degrees.
so I know a guy that did that too. Except he did it inside of a walk-in.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. Not a good time.
Not
Definitely
really.
would not use a blowtorch.
No, and that's I learned a very valuable lesson. Don't ever,
SDS.
don't ever do it. Don't
The
ever.
S the SDS is the real champ for that.
SDS.
Like the good hammer drills, like expensive gas hammer drills, like the ones that don't look like a drill, they look like
No, he was shooting the coil, Kev.
oh,
He was like playing Ghostbusters with the coil, trying to get all the ice build up because
the small
someone.
company I went to for a while in between when I quit Client Pros.
Mhm.
That's how they de-ice coils before when I got there. It was they were using acetylene torches. Like they were in their B tanks. I'm like, what is going on? You're in a closed walk-in with a B. Yeah, this guy's in there with a weed torch. Like I understand what you're saying. Like it gets yeah, like a weed torch.
Hooked up to hooked up to an LP freaking tank.
That's
Just
retarded.
blasting away. The walk-in was the size of like a small vehicle. You know what I mean? It wasn't a small. It was probably 50 horsepower, 40 horsepower, something fairly large, but still blowtorch. Bad
Yeah.
idea.
No, that's why I like electric defrost because like you could just let it cook and it gets the coil still hot, even though it's the hot gas is getting from the tubes, but The problem with most EMS controllers is when you lock the hot gas on, say if you lock a defrost on the circuit group, even though it's locked on defrost, the main differential valve is done in the software. So you got to lock that too. So this is more room for failure. And then if something else goes into defrost, now that's getting a crappy defrost. And then you really got to watch it because now you're feeding. If you could starve out your cases.
Yeah,
So
or you can make the freaking thing go off on high pressure. I mean, we've discussed this before where, once you get to that point where you're vapor in and vapor out, the OLDR, the DDR starts losing its differential and then it starts clamping down. So if you have a DDR, you could potentially go off on a higher, high pressure that's clamping down so high. And if you have the OLDR, you could potentially drain out or max out your receiver up to 100% because it's not letting any liquid flow out.
that's why electric defrost for coils is the real champ, because you can get that thing nice and warm while you're doing other stuff. Go clean the motor room, go clean your truck, go do something. Just get it nice and warm and let it cook and just keep an eye on it. You can just watch it. Watch the term sensor just slowly trail up, gets to about 32 degrees, flat lines, and then just starts heading up, and it's so you're about to be defrosted. Go ahead.
So back to what we were talking about. Sorry, we like totally segued out. What is the easiest way that you found as far as having to install heaters in a case that wasn't originally set up for electric defrost? Because you said that you have to rewire it obviously and try to make it look pretty, which is not always the easiest. So what I do as far as the connecting the heater to the coil, I usually use like 14 gauge copper wire and
Yep.
then loop it around and twist it like a bread tie. You know what I mean? Because 12 gauge would be way too thick, and you'll potentially damage the coil. Baling wire is kind of tough. Soft 14 gauge copper wire seems to do the trick for it. What do you think?
So two things: fence post or they're baling pliers, I think they're
Hmm.
called. Like they're
Hmm.
they're made to twist like fence post stuff. Those work real well. So
So
what
do
I
diamonds.
Yeah, but this is made to get a good twist on there. So and it's a little easier than you pull up on it, and it's a little easier than twisting linemen's around.
Okay.
But so using wire like you said, or I switched to stainless zip ties.
That's right. You did mention that.
So I bought stainless metal zip ties off Amazon and a zip tie gun that's made to crimp them. Now, I use these a lot for temp sensors on like suction lines, discharge lines, stuff like that on the racks. Makes it look, you know, cleans it up a little bit other than a zip tie. Makes it look a little nicer, gives it a little more sturdy. But they work fairly well for the cases because they're still rigid. So
Hmm.
you can bend them in like kind of a loop and fish them through a tube,
Hmm.
around a tube. Now, what I generally try to do is if you have Hussman or Hill Phoenix, they usually have dead tubes in there, meaning like they have hollow tubes that aren't used. I try to connect the heaters to those tubes because I don't give a shit if I crank on them.
A lot of times there's not one there.
Most of the time, there's usually one or two in the back wall because they're there to make the coil more rigid.
Mhm.
So usually,
Yeah.
usually there's one or two of them, but whatever. The Hussman ones, as far as I've seen, the bracket that holds the coil is the same bracket that is the hot gas holds the hot gas coils. So I'm assuming they're probably stamping them all the same and just using the same bracket.
Mhm.
So it already has the cutouts in there. So the Hussman ones are easy. You just
Mhm.
gotta fold the things down. I've never done a zero zone one. All the zero zone coils I've seen, the heater's been on the bottom of the coil. What's that?
I understand what you're saying.
Like yeah, it's like it's weird. It's like part of the heater's on the bottom of the coil, and it's like a U-shaped heater and a strap at the front. So like those ones is what it is. Like bone stuff, I don't know if you can go the opposite way on like a walk-in coil. I don't know if you can go from gas to electric. I mean that they would probably require a lot of
No, I wouldn't think it would be too difficult because you can use like you said, your John's control or your like I said, your Ranco control for the fan heater.
I guess they do still have the grooves in the back of the coils.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they really. And does it matter? It doesn't matter if it has the grooves or not. Basically, if you had it converted, just keep, like you said, keep the heater there. It's not going to do anything bad. It's already
Oh no,
meant for the same
going
amount of airflow.
from electric to hot gas in those coils isn't bad. I'm talking about going the opposite way, going from hot gas to electric.
I guess it would matter if it has the actual pan loop.
Yeah, like which I'm totally.
That would probably be a pain in the ass. And I think the only thing you'd actually honestly technically have to do is you'd have to just change out the whole pan to a regular conventional one piece pan instead of that.
Double
The
insulated.
layers. Yeah, the layered crap.
You could buy, by the way. So if you have a pan leak,
Hmm.
you could actually buy conversion kits from them to go
Hmm.
to electric pan heater.
Really.
Totally worth the money.
And they don't pull that much. Usually they make them the same voltage as the evaporator fans, right? For because it's using the same power for fan pan, right?
Yeah, it's not much. It's for the power savings or whatever, or not running a circuit. I don't think it's worth it. I think
Mhm.
the service calls over time just aren't worth it. It's just more pan ice ups, and if they do ice up, it's a nightmare to get it out, and you can't just send her to Jesus with a hammer.
Oh my god! I can't believe you do that.
What, the pans? Oh, dude, I just I get them hot, especially like the Sam's Club, the big ones, like the Costco ones. You get them hot, you tap on the bottoms with a hammer, and I'm not talking like just wailing on it. Like you tap on the bottoms of it, you break it loose from the coil, you drop it down, and all the ice just falls right off.
Like a Happy Gilmore, right? Just tap it in.
Just tap it in, and then you lose it and start hitting it like he was driving the balls at the hockey club.
Send it to Jesus.
All right, guys, that was converting cases.
Back and forth. Have a nice one. Bye, guys.